About this mic. Now, the problem with this is I'm Italian, so I now have a speech impediment. I speak to a lot of CEOs and very powerful and influential people. And one time I was in Washington, D.C. talking to what's called the Young Presidents Organization. Do you know this group? It's a very quiet group, but you have to be under 49 years of age, have something like, and they keep raising the standards, but something like 200 employees, you have to make $50 million a year in your company, and then you get vetted, and then you might get invited to join. I mean, it's very, very high powered. When I was speaking, when I was done, they were going to get a personal tour of the White House. So I have all of these CEOs, these YPOers, in a room with their spouses, and I have a half an hour to talk about the power of losing control. So I'm talking about the power of losing control to these guys, and of course I have to tell my cancer story in order to then get to the real meat of the things I want to share with them about how the processes that we go through, how that works, so you can change the way you think, the way you define things, the way you behave to things. I get all done, and they have, like, I don't know, 8 minutes for questions, and a gentleman over there, his name's Mike. He's about my size, but he talks like this. He goes, "Yeah, Joe." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Yeah, that cancer you had." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Was that a blessing or a curse?" Nobody ever asked me that. I don't have an answer. I don't know what to say. I want to impress these guys. I want to be smart. But I've learned, bring all you are to all you do. It's all you need. So I stopped in the moment and I said, "Hold on a second. If you don't mind, sir, I'll just talk out loud and share with you my response to your question because I don't have an answer." He said, that'd be great." Okay. I said, it was the worst curse of my life, the darkest moments of my life. I had a side effect, a weird side effect that only some people get, I guess, from the bleomycin that affected my nerves. I couldn't button my shirt. I couldn't hold the door for somebody. I got so skinny. His name was Mike. He lives in a city outside of Chicago, Illinois. So I said, I got so skinny, Mike, that I couldn't sit in the chair that didn't have a lot of cushion or a pillow on it because my butt bones couldn't handle the pressure because it hurt so bad. I said, I threw up every few minutes, and I can't even tell you when there's nothing left what comes out. I said, I never prayed to God, please let me live. But I remember saying, God, just give me a sign that it's worth it. So in that, I have to say it was the darkest period of my life. That being said, Mike, it was the greatest blessing I ever had. Because had I not had, a cocky young 18-year-old, been faced with that kind of an opportunity to rethink myself, and had an opportunity to meet Jeannie, and had an opportunity to understand and read and study and learn and commit to people, spend the rest of my life committing to people, I probably wouldn't have done it. And I wouldn't be here today addressing you and being able to answer your stupid question. I didn't say stupid. Smarter than that. Not a lot. Well, I don't know if that answered his question or not, but I felt satisfied. And at the end, I signed books and posters. And I guess I'm going to be over here later on signing if anybody wants anything. But the point being is that people that want to talk to me alone, and I'm in a small, powerful group like that, they drift to the back of the room, and they start to find the wallpaper fascinating. Because they're waiting for everybody to leave, right? Well, Mike was doing that. And I saw him, so I'm signing stuff, people are leaving. And all of a sudden, Mike's in front of me. He's about 2 feet in front of me. This guy is wired. Now, I don't know if he's angry. His fists were clenched. I don't know if he's going to clock me. I don't know if he's going to cry. His eyes were glazed. His veins in his forehead and neck were sticking out. This guy is wired. And we're alone in this ballroom in Washington, D.C. He's so wired that when he starts to speak, the words come out much louder than he wanted them to. He starts with these 2 words. My cancer. And then he doesn't like the way he sounded, so he took just a few seconds to recompose himself. But while he did that, I started making up his story for him. Did you ever make up people's story for them? Oh, yeah. I said, oh, my God, this rich, powerful CEO guy's got cancer. His probably is incurable. Here I am. I'm lucky to be here. Maybe I came off a little too cocky. I don't know. Then I said, shut up, Joe. It might sound impolite, but when I say, Joe, please be quiet, Joe doesn't listen. So I said, shut up, Joe, and let him tell you his story. And I psychically brought myself back, and as open as I could, just stood there and waited. And now when he spoke, he started again with the same two words, not as loud, but a very powerful half whisper. He said, my cancer was my son's disability. You taught me today. That's my blessing, not my curse. And he gave me a one-armed hug, and he walked out the door and left me standing there alone. And I stand in front of you today knowing that that little boy is not a little boy anymore. And that somewhere in a city outside of Chicago, that young man grew up with a father who loved him. Because I said words, just words, at the right moment, at the right time. And he got to reconsider himself and not be a victim to it, but find power in it by how he redefines himself, what's happening, and how he wants to think and behave.